Why is no one hiring junior software engineers? Is it due to the massive layoffs in big tech flooding the market with experienced developers? Or the growth in AI automating low level tasks typically performed by entry level talent? Or perhaps a fear of inflation, where companies are pulling back from investing in technology and by extension, its people? Whatever the root cause is, the fact remains that the job market is the toughest it's ever been for entry level developers. Which is why today I'm chatting with Byron Sommardhal, a software developer advocate at Dev Amplifier, whose entire focus is helping developers identify and work on the skill gaps that are stopping them from getting that first job. So listen in to see what gaps he typically sees in new software engineers and how he thinks they should go about addressing them. Well, Byron, welcome to the show. Happy to have you.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. I love having these great conversations with you.
Yeah, absolutely. We've collaborated before over the last few years, so I'm really excited to talk about today's topic, which is why is nobody hiring junior developers right now? So I know the market has been bad for years, but it's been especially bad in the last few years. And you work a lot with entry level junior developers and trying to upskill themselves. I'm really interested in hearing your perspective. So to kick us off, from your experience, why do you think nobody wants to hire junior developers?
Really, the reason why I think junior developers have such a hard time finding jobs is because they cost too much. They're too expensive, and I'm not talking about like their hourly pay or their salary or anything like that. I mean, typically junior developers are going to cost less than other level developers, but they cost a lot in all the ramp up time, all the hand holding, all the errors that they make, and problems that they cause, like the chaos that ensues when a less experienced developer starts getting in there and mucking around with production systems. And I'm not trying to be offensive. I was once there also as a junior developer, and I made my fair share of mistakes. So I know that the audience for this podcast is entry level junior developers. You're out there pounding the pavement trying to find a job, and you don't want to hear somebody like me come along and say, well, it's because you don't have the right skills. But let's be honest, and let's actually try to solve the problem. So the problem is that you have skill gaps. It costs a hiring manager time and energy and maybe money too to provide you with the amount of support that you would need to be productive and efficient and actually start making a good progress in a project at the company or make waves in the company at all.
What are some of the common skill gaps that you see in entry level developers?
Well, so what I find is that a lot of software developers, even more expensive, even more experienced software developers, end up with a bit of a false sense of security around their skills. You've got just enough JavaScript or just enough C# or just enough of your language or just enough exposure to a framework that you really feel like you've gained mastery. But really there are maybe entire sections, entire categories of that framework, of that library of language that you really don't have mastered. You may have heard of it and you might be able to go to the docs and ramp up on it, but it's still going to cause some problems along the way. You're not going to have the tacit knowledge, the experience that you need to really be efficient with that. You haven't seen the exception messages before. You haven't read that particular type of call stack before. And so it's going to take you longer to get around the problems that are going to ensue. That those kinds of skill gaps, like where you've got some awareness or mastery of the thing that you're trying to use, but you've got an entire section of gaps in the other side for just things that you didn't learn at the boot camp or things that you didn't learn at university or things that you just never needed to use because you've never been in a real production system.
There's probably so many things that you don't know either. So like where do you even go to shore up that gap in your knowledge, would you say?
Yeah, that's actually the crux of the matter is it's the unknown unknowns, which is one reason why this is such a hard subject to discuss with junior developers. They often don't realize that they have these skill gaps, which is it's kind of a problem because it's hard to teach somebody something that they don't really think they need yet. It is all about those unknown unknowns. I don't know what I don't know. And so what I try to do with the junior developers that I work with is to help them discover their skill gaps through an assessment. So you probably heard of a skills gap assessment. It's a very simple assessment, but it's something that not everybody takes it upon themselves to do. And basically it just runs them through a confidence check on all kinds of technologies and concepts to try to figure out where they fall in the spectrum of developer skills. And that's kind of that's the place that I recommend anybody starting is look at the entire panorama of all the skills that you might need as a senior developer in your stack, and figure out where your level of confidence is in those things, and then start to measure the skill gaps, prioritize things, and then start going after those skill gaps. Turn them into milestones. Don't think of them as something negative. Think of them as something like that you need to achieve.
Yeah, it's not something you don't know. It's just something you don't know yet. A little more
Yes,
positive
exactly.
perspective on it. So where would somebody who doesn't know, you're talking about unknown unknowns, they don't know what their gaps are. You mentioned that you have a program that you march people through. Is there any way that somebody can kind of get a high level, quick gut check of where they stand? Like, I mean, I'm thinking just looking at like job descriptions, or like what would you suggest for somebody to get that quick understanding of kind of where they lay in the job market?
Yeah. So you can definitely go to job descriptions, job postings, and see what people say. But often, like if it mentions React, for example, if this is like a full stack web developer or a front end developer, and it just mentions React in just one line, it says that you're able to work efficiently in a React application, or you can build React applications, things like that. That's just one line. There are hundreds of sub skills that you might need in and around React to be able to be a really efficient React developer. And, maybe you've got 30 of those skills and then you've got 70 over there that you don't know yet. So, uh, one way to do that is to work with a coach or a mentor that's a few steps ahead of you and try to figure out where you stand based on their assessment of you. Maybe they can pinpoint some things that you need to work on just by doing some pair programming or doing some coding katas together. Another possibility is to get an actual skill gap analysis, which I provide one of those for free on my website under the tools section of my website. And my tool it'll run you through the entire assessment, but it gives you your top 5 skills based off of urgency and importance and your level of gap that you've got with those. So let's just say you are claiming to be a front end developer, but maybe your confidence in HTML is maybe a 3 out of 5. Well, probably my tool is going to come back to you and say that HTML is one of your more important skills to get right, because it's one of those fundamental things that you need as a front end developer. Then there are probably other ways to find out what those unknowns are, which is kind of the traditional way, right? Everybody, if you never heard this conversation, you never considered what we're talking about right now, then you would be able to just grow the way everybody else grows, which is super slow, super inefficient. You just it's like wandering in the desert. You just kind of happen upon a new skill. Oh, I realize now that I needed that. It's now part of my skill set. Or you have a bad experience in the office and you learn a new communication skill, or you get fired and now you learn some empathy, or you learn a new way to tell off your boss, or you happen upon these skills. Same thing it's the same for non-technical and technical. It's a super slow and efficient process. So I want to throw that out there as that third option. You can just not do anything and you will eventually fill your skill gaps. It'll happen. It's just not going to happen efficiently. So I definitely suggest
Yeah.
going for a skill gap analysis, like a more formal process, or at least working with somebody that's a few steps ahead of you to really go a little bit more intentionally to those skill gaps instead of wandering in the desert.
Yeah, most of the people that listen to this show are career changers, and they might not necessarily have the financial runway to take a long time to kind of ad hoc organically develop those skills because they need a job now. All right, so if a developer, once they figure out kind of what that gap is, the next step is actually trying to shore that up. And as you know, Byron, probably every developer has at least 30 unwatched Udemy tutorials at some point, and they do a great job consuming information, but applying it in a way that is actually perceived as valuable to the recruiter or hiring manager. So, what's the solution there How should a developer approach actually, shoring up those gaps?
Well, they should definitely go back to and do another boot camp. Like another coding boot camp would be great to add on to their experience
You're
and
killing me, Byron. You're killing me.
but you know what? It was seriously, and maybe some people in the audience that are listening right now have gone to multiple boot camps, and I feel you. That has to be really has to be hard to know that you come out of one boot camp, it costs whatever, however many thousand, or maybe you were on ISA or whatever, and then you don't feel prepared, so you got to go to another boot camp. And I mean, I see every day people with multiple boot camps in their experience list or their education list, and it's just it happens, and it's because uh, the method of teaching might be great, but our human retention and our ability to turn head knowledge into hand knowledge is just, it's different for every person out there, and it's kind of problematic because the way we learn is often it takes more time, it takes more repetition, it takes more muscle memory to really get things locked in. So no, I don't suggest you go back to another boot camp. What I do suggest is that you get intentional about your growth. Stop wandering. Stop going all over the place and learning the next new shiny thing. That's called whack-a-mole. Have you ever played whack-a-mole at Chuck E. Cheese?
Yeah,
You
like,
know, the little
yeah,
game
at
where
a
the little
fair or
rodent
something.
sticks his head up there, and you hit over there, and then another rodent over there, and you hit it over there, and he's kind of it's random, and you feel like you never really get anywhere. And that is how we do things often as human beings when we try to grow, is we're just wandering. What I suggest is the opposite, to get super intentional about your growth. You don't need another boot camp. You don't need to go back to the university. You just need a method. You need a process. And I've been working on this for many years, and I've come up with a process that works really well for me, works really well for my students. And I've got a class that I do on this. It's a free class. I'll make sure that it's available to your students. And I walk through these 7 steps in this method pretty quickly, but I give it some more meat than I can give today. This is a shorter podcast, so I won't be able to give it a lot of meat, but I'll run through the process real quick just to see if it piques anybody's interest. And then
Perfect. Thank
if
you.
people want to, they can attend a class, and they can maybe even like join a work session. We can help you build out a custom like growth pathway so that you can really get intentional about this. But it
Yeah,
all
go for
starts
it.
with identifying those skill targets, those skill gaps. So sometimes a skill gap is from the past, like something you should have learned before, and now it's holding you back. It's like it's back on. It's a burr in your saddle. It's a thorn in your boot, and you can't move forward because you've got this gaping hole back there that you didn't know about. So and then sometimes skill gaps are what stand between you and your future goal. So like a forward thinking skill gap. So both of those for me are skill targets. We identify those. And then you want to figure out how you're going to get self-evaluated. You want to evaluate yourself and your own level of confidence on those skills. And so you find out where your baseline is. Then you start to calculate and prioritize your the skill gaps. So where are you today? Where should you be on each one of the skills in your list? And then you prioritize it. So you figure out where's the biggest gap? What are the most important things that I need to learn in order to advance my career? What are the things that are holding me back? Put those at the top of the list, get those prioritized. And so now you've got your list. You've got your prioritized list of skill gaps or milestones. Then you want to figure out what are the learning activities that work for you. It's not always a course. Sometimes it's a YouTube video. Sometimes it's a blog article written by Eric Anderson. Sometimes it's a LinkedIn post, or sometimes it's a mentoring session that you have with somebody just to fill in a few of those little nooks and crannies in your skills. Learning activities are super important. Don't just think it's a course. It doesn't have to be a course. Then after that, and I'm not telling you the step numbers, but now I'm on step number 5. So you need feedback and validation. You need feedback to know that you are on the right track. You need validation to know that yes, you have learned that skill. No, you haven't left any more gaping holes. So feedback and validation is super important. Then along the way, because this may be a simple process, but it's not easy. Like it's just a very simple process to understand. The process of learning and growth for a human being is very simple, but it takes time. It takes stamina. It's just not easy to do on your own. So you need accountability and you need guidance. You need to know that you're on the right track, and you need somebody to cheer you on that's going to be tapping their foot, hands on the hips, waiting for you to get the thing done that you said you were going to get done. And then after that, you need to know when to move on. It's the last step in my process. You need to know when to move on, because if you don't, you're going to be stuck in tutorial hell or some sort of like learning loop for who knows how long. And so you need to know when to stop learning and maybe start doing, or stop trying to acquire that skill and move on to the next skill in your list. If you can do all of those things, if you already know exactly how to do all those things, if you follow that process, I promise you, you will 10x your growth. You'll go so much faster than everybody else that's just kind of wandering around in the desert. And if you need help understanding what those things are, or just want some extra help putting those together, you could come to my free class and I can teach you a little bit more how to do it. And that's my favorite solution is getting intentional and stop wandering.
Yeah, I'll give you a chance here in a bit to kind of talk more about your program here, because I think that could be valuable for those that are trying to, work through those gaps. Got 2 points I want to touch on real quick, though, that really stood out to me as you're talking through that. And the first is, we talk a lot on this podcast about mentorship and networking, and we talk about that in the context of like finding a job. But part of that network also serves the benefit of getting that external source to validate your skill or the direction that you're going. So don't think about networking as just like, give me job, give me job, give me job, but think of it more as like a collaborative experience where you're seeking feedback from the community.
The thing about the validation or the feedback that you get from a job hunting experience, maybe somebody is saying no to you. Maybe they're rejecting you. Maybe they just stopped calling you back. I always tell people, find the nugget of gold in that experience, because you may hate that they rejected you. You may hate that you got ghosted, but this is an opportunity for you to figure out where do you need to change? What do you need to improve? What do you need to change in your messaging? There's always an opportunity there to grow and learn.
Yeah, because the wrong response is to just go on LinkedIn and roast the employer and complain about how nobody's hiring right now. Because that coming across that way does not increase your odds at all of
Right.
getting a job. You're not impressing anybody by complaining online. The second thing I want to call out from that description you walked through was how I think this is also incredibly beneficial for those that are already employed, maybe earlier on in their career, even not just those that are looking for work. To think about my own journey, it's true that, you get hired to do job A, and maybe that's front end, and it's incredibly easy to just iterate on what the company wants you to do, and you get kind of pushed down a path that the
Yeah.
company wants you to be. And they may not necessarily be interested in like broadening your scope of work or growing you as an individual. So you get incredibly pigeonholed into a skill set that nobody outside of that employer cares about. So yeah,
Yeah.
even when you're hired, you need to continue that personal development journey to make sure that doesn't happen to you.
Yeah. And even while you're in that development journey with your employer, everybody should realize that, and I don't know if people think about this much, but the growth experience that your employer gives is something that you should give thanks for, but it shouldn't replace your feeling of personal responsibility in your own growth. Just because they're providing you with courses and training doesn't mean that you're off the hook. It's still your skill set. The skill sets are you. I mean, your skills are yours. The time that you spend developing them might belong to your employer, which is like, hey, that's great. Thank you so much for helping me along that path. And you may learn things that you may not want to learn with your employer. That's okay. But it doesn't replace your own personal responsibility to grow yourself.
Yeah, I know at least one developer who became an expert in some like super outdated, language that like, sure, great, they're great at that now, but like nobody's hiring for that. If that company tanks, like you're screwed. Sorry to say that.
And they feel stuck. They've been doing the same tech for 7 years, same product, everything for 7 years. And while that is admirable, it's probably damaging. It is damaging that developer's career and future prospects, because everything that they know is out of date. And it's because they forgot that their own personal growth journey is up to them.
Absolutely. So thank you for walking through some of that self-evaluation process that developers can walk through. I know you just did a high level here, and if there's any links later for people to, if they're interested, dive into more of those, I'll include those in the show notes. But you've mentioned as well some of the mentorship that you have in your program. Can you take a few minutes to kind of talk about the education, the mentorship that you do in your program, and how you think that benefits entry level developers?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we do at Dev Amplifier is coaching. It's not a course. Now we do courses and we do training and we'll do workshops. I'll tell you about a workshop here in a few minutes. But the main thing that we do is coaching. And to me, coaching is way better and more important than training because coaching is kind of like overarching. You can have me as your coach, and I'm going to go with you for the next few years as your all the time. I'm going to be your coach. And then you might come to me and say, it seems like I need to brush up my skills in C sharp. It seems like I found a skill gap in C sharp. And so as your coach, I'm going to try to help you connect with the right learning experiences, maybe try to help you maximize on whatever experience you're already getting with that. It's like a strategy thing, a strategic way of looking at career building instead of a tactical way of career building, which is like, just go and take this course, whatever. So we do coaching. That's the main thing that we do. And then to help with the coaching, we have mentorship. So we have a wonderful pool of very experienced developers in our company that are mentoring. These are full-time developers in other companies, and they mentor the developers that are part of our program. And they'll get into a 1-hour session with a mentor. They'll probably shoot the breeze for a few minutes about career stuff, about job stuff, maybe even some non-technical conversation around job situations, business acumen, things like that. But then they will often get into some pair programming and maybe work on a kata together, or maybe do some live code review and things like that. So our mentoring sessions are super rich with experience and value. But it's just a piece of the overall puzzle, because what we really want to do is not just do things 1 hour at a time, but we really want to work our way into your life and be your coach and help you decide where to go next and what skills to tackle next. And we might say, hey, go take this Udemy course. Looks like it'll help you to fill that skill gap. We might say, here's a YouTube video that you should check out. Or we might say, you know what? You're a big boy. You need to go and research this on your own. We're just going to hold you accountable to it. We might be able to give you an evaluation and give you that confirmation and validation that says, yes, you have learned this thing. You've arrived in React. You are now a React, whatever, something after Pad 1. So there's mentorship in my program. There's coaching. There's that validation and evaluation. There's a lot of community, a lot of back and forth between your cohort team members. We also like to get people involved in open source projects so that you can actually work on an agile team, working together with high standards and having to basically fulfill client requirements for that are part of a larger cause or a larger community.
Very nice. Well, thank you so much for coming on and talking here. And just to kind of highlight some of the aspects of your program that I'm really excited about, to augment some of the skill gaps we've talked about throughout the episode. In addition to this coaching and mentoring that you do, you also have different workshops that vary on different topics, month to month, that may help augment some of the less common skills that junior developers may get coming out of their program. And looking at your website here, it looks like you have some upcoming ones. Building a CI/CD pipeline, agile coding, 10xing your skill growth, etc. And you've even offered to give 80% off if they use the link that we'll include in the show notes from this podcast. So thank you so much for offering that discount to our listeners.
Yeah, man. And yeah, we'd love to have anybody in our program. I love developers. I've been a developer for more than 30 years, and it is near and dear to my heart, and I love to help developers grow.
Well, thank you so much, Byron, for coming on and offering that. Really enjoyed the conversation. We'll see you around.
Hey, man. Thank you so much for your time. See ya.
Thanks for tuning in to the Junior Jobs Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please remember to like and subscribe, as that helps us reach more developers in need. And don't forget to check the show notes for details on today's sponsor and other job search services that we provide.